What the city is talking about.
The news that impacts you.
Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast.
With Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and this week we'll take a look at these stories. The latest year-end poll conducted by Nanos research into how Canadians feel about their country, its future, and its politics points to some rather eye-opening results, especially as far as the Liberal Party is concerned. And let's just say, it couldn't be much worse. Nick Nanos will break it all down.
You've heard of dry January, where you cut out alcohol for the entire month. Maybe you're doing it yourself. But is dry January really worth all the hype? That's the question a writer for Chatelaine asked, as in, what are the actual impacts of no booze on your overall well-being? And could giving it up temporarily actually end up making you drink more? We found out.
Plus, the cars we drive are becoming more and more technologically sophisticated and providing more and more information to us. Problem is, they also provide a whole lot more information about us. And that information is now being weaponized by some. And it's without the driver's knowledge. What's worse, car manufacturers don't seem to be concerned at all. That story coming up too.
But this week, we begin with this. We know that screen time is not great for kids, right? Especially young children. But now new research suggests no screen time whatsoever until the age of 3. Why? And what are the guidelines from that point on? This is that story.
I came across a story this morning and thought, wow, I have little guys, grandchildren, and they are basically glued to their iPad more often than not, right? And you see it all the time, right? So here's the deal. Maybe before plopping your child in front of the TV or the laptop or the iPad, you might now want to at least think twice, because there's a new study that shows children should not be watching any TV until they're at least 3 years old. Dr. Karen Heffler is an associate professor at Drexel University and is on the line. Dr. Heffler, thanks for being here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, let me begin by asking the question. This has become a default for a lot of parents, right? Because it keeps your child busy. You just plop them in front of the iPad. You don't think twice. And when I say your child, I've seen little guys, literally 1 and 2 years old, being able to do this. And the suggestion now, based on this research, is that's a bad idea. So the question, I guess, would be why?
Well, what we looked at was early screen times. We looked at how much TV and videos children were watching at 12 months, 18 months, and 24 months. And then we looked at sensory processing at 33 months. And we found that children that were watching any screens compared to no screens had twice the odds of having a typical sensory processing if they were watching at 12 months. And again, the outcome was when they were 33 months. So early screen time is associated with atypical sensory processing. At 18 months and 24 months, we found similar findings. It was over 20% increased odds of having atypical sensory processing. So when we talk about sensory processing, we think about what a child sees, hears, smells, feels, and these categories were then recategorized into sensory processing categories, including sensory seeking, like being attracted to spinning or shining objects, playing with food, sensory avoiding, resisting new foods, resisting being held, or like escaping noisy environments, sensory sensitivity, so a child that would easily startle or cry when exposed to a different type of a surface or different temperatures, meltdown with schedule changes, and a category called low registrations, which basically means that the child needs more sensory input to get the response. So they may avoid eye contact, be slow to respond to their name or to familiar voices. So these are the types of atypical sensory processing that we found associated with early screen time.
My first reaction is, wow, yeah, exactly. To hear all those things that affect little guys. This is now why at the age of 3? What changes at age 3?
Okay, so our study was through age 2 years. And the recommendations of the American Academy of Pediatrics are no screen viewing through at least 18 months, and then maybe a little bit of screen viewing with the parents co-viewing up until 24 months, and only 1 hour a day through age 5. So it's actually no screen viewing up until 18 to 24 months. But what happens is that children understand what they're watching so that they would watch a program and learn the content of it. And particularly if the parents are talking about what's going on in the show and relating it to the child's usual activities, then the child can understand. But an infant doesn't understand what they're watching. So their brain would be processing the audio visual in terms of the lights and the images and the movement and colors and sound. And we think that that could potentially affect early brain development.
That is absolutely fascinating. And then I wonder, so limiting to 1 hour within, I think you said 18 to 24 months. And then from that point on, is the normal, I've always heard, is 2 hours. So is it, and that even to me seems like a lot for young children.
Well, the recommendations, most of the recommendations are only 1 hour through age 5 and then 2 hours over age 5 of entertaining programming, and that doesn't include if the children are having educational programming in school. That's a separate category. Okay. And then also I want to comment that video chatting is also considered differently because the person is interactive with the baby or the young child, so that's not considered in the same category as entertainment.
Okay.
I'm curious. So wait, I had said originally iPad, laptop. This is basically any viewing, whether you're on your laptop or whether you're watching TV that you're not interacting with?
So this particular study, the children were enrolled at birth between 2011 and 2014. So it covered video and TV. It was before mobile devices were really available.
Okay.
But we think that similar mechanisms would probably apply to mobile devices because there's most of the time when children are viewing, they're viewing video. So we did look at TV video.
Okay.
And so it sounds to me, ultimately, it's about processing, right? So when they're little, it's the way, like you said, they're processing on a much more visceral level. And as they get older, that the way that they're processing what they're viewing changes.
Yes, because they understand. They may understand things in a social context. They understand the relationships between people or whatever they're viewing. Whereas it's a sensory processing for babies. They're not going to understand the content of what they're watching.
You know, I'm just thinking for parents listening to this who may sit back and go, what, only an hour? That doesn't seem like a lot when you just plant your child in front of the TV because you're busy doing stuff and it's 2 hours or 3 hours later. That's going to be a bit of a challenge, I would guess, for some parents.
Well, what I would say is that traditional toys can be really useful and young children can play with the old, the blocks and the cups and the balls and those types of traditional toys, little farm animals. And parents can also engage their children in family routines, so the children could be involved a little bit when the parents are doing laundry, and the parents could still use that time to teach about big and little and red and blue and those types of things. But it is challenging, and what I would say is that parents should just do the best that they can, and hopefully this information will empower them to at least have information about screen time and child development, that they could consider this, if at all possible, in how they have their child spend time.
Now, you're not thinking about this. It's too late now. Your daughter's 11, but...
Yeah, my daughter's 11, and I just find the addiction of it is so incredibly troubling. Like, once, it's just become part of their routine to have a little bit of screen time. Trying to get them off it is literally mission impossible. It's so frustrating. And I assume, again, that has something to do with how it's triggering the brain, if you will.
Yes, and I think it's different for older children. For the very young children, like infants, it may be easier to turn off the screens, but again, the parents a lot of times are involved with their own screen media, so if they're, if the parents have the opportunity and the resources to use that time with their child, then those types of interactions have been shown to be positive for early childhood development. But it is a true struggle.
Yeah, it's a struggle for adults, so imagine for children.
For kids, Doctor, I want to thank you so much for your time today. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Dr. Karen Heffler over at Drexel University. I'm just thinking, and I'm not indicting anyone here, I'm just saying, you know what, parents, you're busy, you're in the house, you put your kid down in front of the TV or whatever, and you don't think of how long it's going to be, right?
And you don't think about the effect that it's having.
Well, we don't know, but now we're starting to find out. But what do? You go back, you set a timer and go back in an hour and just take that away from them? I can't imagine that's going to be easy.
It was interesting what she said about how it's so much easier to take it away from from infants than it is. It's so true because they don't freak out the same way. They're not going to argue with you and try and negotiate and reason.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's just that whole idea, though, of realizing that there should be a limit, which I think a lot of parents probably don't, even for little guys, for 2-year-olds.
Oh, I think most parents know that there's a limit and that you should be trying to. But like I said, I think we also heard for a long time that 2 hours a day was okay.
Yeah.
Now she said 1 hour a day up to 5, and then from that point on 2 hours a day. But it depends also what they're consuming.
Okay. Well, there you know, just trying to provide a little help for you if you got the little guys at home, and that's something worth paying attention to.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
You've heard of dry January, where you cut out alcohol for the entire month. Maybe you're doing it yourself, but is dry January really worth all the hype? That's the question a writer for Chatelaine asked, as in, what are the actual impacts of no booze on your overall well-being? And could giving it up temporarily actually end up making you drink more? We found out. So as Aaron and I were talking about before the break, I know a lot of people who do dry January, as in they decide that's it, no more alcohol. They go on the wagon for the whole month. And largely they do this because...
Wait, when you say you know them, do they actually do it or they just talk about doing it?
No, my dad does it every year. Yeah. And Dave does it. Sometimes he does it in like October. He chooses a month, but he does it.
Month.
At least once or twice a year. And I think a lot of the time that people do it in January, it's because they've overindulged during the holidays, right? But does it work? And what kind of effect does it actually have on your body and your mental well-being, your mood? Does dry January actually do anything? That is the title of the piece Rebecca Gao wrote in Chatelaine. She's a Toronto-based freelance journalist, and she joins us now. Hello, Rebecca.
Hi, Natasha. Hey, Aaron.
Thanks for your time today. So, I mean, I think it's a great question out of the gate, and I feel like I want to ask you, did you write about this because you were wanting to try it yourself, or you know people who've tried it?
I know people who tried dry January. I actually do not do it. I'm not a super heavy drinker. I actually drink more, I would say, in the summer than during the holidays, but yeah, I was just interested in kind of the growing number of people who tried January and also like the growing number of like kind of low ABV options out there that I've been trying out.
Okay, sorry, the low alcohol, is that
Yeah, so low alcohol, so like 0% beers, wines, things like
okay.
that.
Yeah, I can't believe how many people are drinking. We call it no beer in our household. We've been doing it for years just because sometimes you want to have the taste of it without the buzz. But so many more people than ever are sober curious. But I'm wondering in terms of the effects that this could have or how, what it achieves, does that depend on how heavy a drinker you are to begin with?
Yeah, for sure. So anyone will see positive effects from doing dry January or just taking a break in terms of drinking. So first things, mental health effects. Drinking actually can make things like anxiety and depression a lot worse. Stopping drinking can also make your cognition and concentration better. But it also depends on how much you drink. If you're a more heavy drinker, it might take a while for you to actually see positive effects just because you have to kind of taper off, especially if you're feeling some like really heavy withdrawal symptoms. But if you're a more casual drinker, average drinker, let's say you drink a couple nights a week, then you'll see benefits pretty quickly. Okay,
what are some of those symptoms that you're talking about, withdrawal, either mild or more extreme?
Yeah, for sure. So a mild withdrawal symptom, everyone kind of feels, it kind of just feels like a hangover, dehydrated, bad mood, not feeling, too good the next morning.
You mean like Tuesday? Okay.
And in terms of some of those more severe withdrawal symptoms, you might feel fever, hallucination, and you might even experience seizures.
Whoa. Okay. But that's in the more extreme circumstances. And then in terms of the positive effects, how soon do most people start to experience those and what do those feel like?
Yeah, for sure. Basically right away. If you've ever, had a really bad night of drinking and you decide, I'm not going to drink for a while, you might at first feel really hungover, but after a couple of days, you'll start to feel a lot more mental clarity. Your cognition will improve. Another huge benefit is that your sleep is going to improve. So sleeping actually is really bad, drinking is actually really bad for our sleep because as your body kind of metabolizes the alcohol, it wakes you up in the middle of the night. Also, you have to pee a lot more when you drink, so you get up in the middle of the night to go pee. And other physical benefits include being less gassy and also having less acid reflux.
Huh. Okay. And then I guess...
You think that'd be reason enough. You list off all of those and you say, okay, that doesn't sound like a bad deal for a whole month, right? Being able to avert all of those.
And to be able to reap those kinds of benefits. But it's temporary, right? That's the thing. And then I can't help but wonder, Rebecca, when people do dry January, does it mean they then end up overindulging? They're like waiting for the last day of the month and then they go out and undo everything they've just done?
Not necessarily. And I guess that's kind of where the question of dry January and whether or not you should do it comes in. A lot of people take the New Year as a natural point in their life to kind of reevaluate relationships that they have with alcohol or any other negative habits that they have. So in that vein, it's definitely a great time to kind of reestablish what kind of boundaries you want to have around alcohol and other substances. And that just means more soul searching. So if you're someone like me who I'm a pretty casual drinker, I really only drink when I'm out, I can kind of bounce back and forth between drinking and not drinking, having periods of time where I drink more, periods of time where I don't drink at all. If you're someone who has a bit more of a toxic relationship with alcohol, dry January might be a good time to kind of think about your relationship with alcohol and then maybe seek professional help or set up new boundaries around drinking for yourself.
Right, especially if you're realizing that you're really struggling. Like if you just are really having a hard time not having that drink, then maybe that's an indicator that you do need some help and that there is an issue there. In your article, Chatelaine, you give 4 tips for a successful dry January. Can you walk us through some of those?
Yeah, of course. First thing, most importantly, don't replace alcohol with another substance. So don't go and do cannabis edibles instead. It just kind of reinforces that pattern of coping with substances instead of building healthy habits.
Sure.
Next thing is to get some friends to join you. Like I said, I am mostly a social drinker, and people usually drink during social situations, so it can be kind of hard to be the only sober person in the room. But doing dry January in a group can not only give you like a supportive network of people to lean back on if you're having a hard time, but it also makes it easier than just socialize without drinking. You could also try to plan some events with your friends that don't have any drinking or go places where alcohol isn't served. So like a movie theater where there's no alcohol is a great example. It's also a good example to try keeping a daily journal to track your mood and any effects you might see. It can be hard to kind of reflect back on how you felt, especially if it was a while ago. Let's say it's the end of January, you want to see if there was any really positive effects. So keeping a daily journal of seeing how you can feel can actually make it easier for you to keep on track because you can look back to even a week ago and say, oh yeah, I was feeling more clear-minded, or I did sleep better, whatever it might be. And finally, if you're really, really struggling to stop drinking, if dry January is a huge struggle for you, it might be time to look for more support. So that might mean talking to a therapist about your relationship with alcohol or seeking out other professional help.
Excellent advice and tips. I really appreciate your perspective on it, and it's pause for thought. Let's just say thank you for your time today, Rebecca.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. That's Rebecca Gao, a Toronto-based freelance journalist. This piece is called Does Dry January Actually Do Anything? It was in Chatelaine. You can find it online.
Well, you're just a casual drinker, but were you thinking to do this for a whole month? Just give it up altogether? You only drink 2-3 times a week?
Yeah, I try to not drink until Wednesday or Thursday. That's my normal. My norm is like Sunday. But I'll cheat every once in a while. If I've had a stressful day or whatever, I'll have a little drink. I've never tried to go an extended period of time. I've gone like a couple of weeks at a time. Well, actually, I obviously the whole time I was pregnant and nursing. So that's funny to think that I actually went about 2.5 years without drinking. And no, it didn't faze me.
So that's a good thing. It means you can do whenever you want, I guess, going forward.
Well, I come from a family that, I'm going to be delicate how I say this, but where I think that could be an issue. And so I've always been particularly careful with my consumption.
Okay.
I worry about it all the time. And Dave's like, the fact that you worry about it shows that you're on top of it.
Don't come to my house. I have liquor in my house because I'm supposed to have it, apparently. But does liquor go bad?
No.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Because some of those bottles have been sitting there for 3 years and 4 years. They've never,
I think you're all right.
All right, good. I'm going to start drinking then.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
The latest year-end poll conducted by Nanos research into how Canadians feel about their country, its future, and its politics points to some rather eye-opening results, especially as far as the Liberal Party is concerned. And let's just say, it couldn't be much worse. Nick Nanos will break it all down. Interesting polling, new numbers on a lot of varying issues just been released now by Nanos Research. Nick Nanos, the chair and founder of Nanos, is on the line. Nick, thank you for being here. Before we get going, by the way, we'd like to congratulate you on the honor of having received the Order of Canada. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks for the very kind wishes. So I appreciate it.
How long have you been doing this, Nick? How many years?
Oh, now I'm going to take a nap. 35 years. 35 years.
Well, congrats.
Was that all?
That's, yeah.
Does it sound like a prison sentence?
Yeah, just a walk.
35 years, hard labor.
That's right. Just a walk in the park. Okay. Let's get to this latest poll. And this is really, as I said, wide-ranging. So let's first of all start with what we typically talk about, which is how political parties, federal parties, are doing in this country. And the news for the Liberals, I'm not sure it's fair to say it goes from bad to worse, but it's still pretty terrible.
Yeah. The thing is that right now the Conservatives are enjoying a double-digit lead. In the latest Nanos tracking, they're at 38%, 12 points ahead of the Liberals at 26, NDP at 21. So, what we have is, and what we have seen for the last few months has been Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives leading on the ballot numbers, leading on leadership. So, it's going to be interesting to see whether 2024 is any better for the Liberals. But 2023, especially the close, not very good.
I was thinking, so you said you've been doing this a mere 35 years. You've seen a thing or two. Have you ever seen a party come back from that low rate?
Yeah, but it takes, so first of all, in my experience, there's very little that the Liberals can do to turn these numbers around. They need both Pierre Poilievre and Jagmeet Singh to both make massive mistakes, or for there to be some kind of revelation that people go, I'm not sure about these folks as alternatives to the Liberals. So the likelihood of that happening is, it's not very good. It's not likely for both of them to both kind of slip on a political banana peel at the same time. So, but, we've seen elections where everybody thought that the election was over before it even started, and then the election mattered, where, once people focused on the front runner, that pressure would resulted in a misstep. But right now, Pierre Poilievre hasn't been making very many mistakes.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting beyond the fact that, that level, that gap between the two parties still remains as large as it is. You actually, in the polling that you did here, and this is only now a couple of weeks ago, you talk about performance of the federal government as well, and those are pretty eye-opening numbers too.
Yeah, this particular study we've been doing for about 17 years. We ask Canadians to score the government on their performance, and the Liberals have broken a record that most governments don't want to break. They've received the lowest positive scores than any other government in the past 17 years. And I think this speaks to the fact, and to put this into context, in 2015 and 2016, the Trudeau Liberals actually registered the highest scores we've seen in 17 years. So they've gone from, really strong score to now breaking the record for weak positive numbers when it comes to their performance.
Yeah, and with percentage of Canadians who actually would consider voting for them or thinking they're doing a good job, is that a record low as well?
Yeah, well, what's interesting about the Liberals is that traditionally, they're the bigger tent, so to speak, right? As they kind of position themselves to traditionally kind of appeal to both conservative and more progressive voters. But this particular configuration of the Liberal Party under Justin Trudeau, actually their accessible voters are much lower than they were than the party that he inherited, and which means that the thing is that the built-in advantage that the Liberals had in the past is no longer there, because not as many Canadians would be even open to voting Liberal compared to 2014 and 2013.
So are you, I'm thinking back to Stephen Harper Conservatives doing so terribly in 2013. How did they think he was doing, how did he do in terms of approval rating and doing a good job? Was that equally as bad at that time?
Well, on a couple of the measures, like wrong direction, whether the country's moving in the right direction or the wrong direction, both the Harper Conservatives I think back in 2013, and the Trudeau Liberals today are scored for the worst, are tied for the worst score at 31%. Okay. So that's the zone that we're in. These numbers are, they've been in power since 2015, the Liberals. So, if you look at this trend line and the trend line at the end of the Harper Conservatives, there are a number of similarities.
Yeah, and we know what happened in 2015 after those bad numbers in 2013. I guess that doesn't portend well for the Liberals.
No, exactly. And, the thing is that, I think one of the reasons why Stephen Harper lost, there are a number of reasons, but I think one of the reasons why he lost is he was so fixated on his opponent, Justin Trudeau, that he dismissed and didn't like, that he did not communicate to Canadians why he needed another mandate and the work that was left to do for the Conservative government. Ironically, I think the same thing is kind of happening now. I think Justin Trudeau definitely does not like Pierre Poilievre. He wants to stop him, but the Trudeau Liberals have yet to articulate why they deserve another mandate and what's left to be done for Canadians.
Yeah, I will also point to a couple of things in here, Nick, that I found fascinating. And this has been talked about generally, but this idea of Canada's standing in the world. So, I mean, in the media, we sort of talk about these things, but it's not one of those issues where you can look at someone and say, well, why? Why do you think that way? But your survey here, your tracking, shows that Canadians basically, in general, think it's about as bad as it could be.
Yeah, they're not experts in foreign policy, but, when we ask whether Canadians think that our international reputation has improved or not improved, only about 13% believe that it's improved to one extent or another, while about 63% say that it is not improved. And this is another record that they broke. Like, Stephen Harper's worst score on this was 18%, and right now, 18% improvement. And right now, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are at 13%. And I think this speaks to, stress in the relationship with China, stress in the relationship with India.
Right.
The Biden administration is friendly, but not as friendly as other administrations have been. For example, under Brian Mulroney and Jean Chrétien, there are much more cordial relations between Canada and the U.S. So it's like everything on the international front is just not going well right now.
Right, and then that makes me think, of course, it's an election year in the States. Things are just heating up down there. It's going to be something else, let's just say. What kind of impact do you see that having here? Like, if Trump does indeed get elected, do Canadians rally more around Pierre Poilievre, or do they start to sway more liberal in rejection of Trump?
Well, I'm sure, for the Liberals, and our firm is nonpartisan. We don't do work for any political party, but I'm sure the Liberals will try to connect Pierre Poilievre's type of politics to Donald Trump's. I'm not sure how well that's going to work, because the reality is that Pierre Poilievre has been very consistent since he was elected leader, right? He came out more likely to kind of favor the truckers, and he had certain positions on vaccinations. These have not changed. So I think all of the baggage is already baked in. But I think the big question is might there be someone around Pierre Poilievre that perhaps goes one step further? And I think that might be the risk for the Conservatives.
The one thing, again, because this is such a wide-ranging survey here, we talk about the economy all the time. We keep hearing it, but of course, what you found out is that's the dominating concern for Canadians as well.
Yeah. Right at the top of the list, Canadians are really focused on inflation and the cost of living. Also, significant focus on housing. Actually, the top three unprompted issues are all economic: inflation, jobs, and affordable housing. And then after that, we have like a second tier of the environment and healthcare. So right now, Canadians are entering 2024 firmly focused on pocketbook issues, how they're going to pay for the groceries, and how they're going to pay for the rent of the mortgage.
Not surprising.
Yeah, which makes you wonder again when you talk about not dealing with issues, right? Spending all your time railing against Pierre Poilievre if you're Justin Trudeau, where Canadians think you should be focusing on these other issues, and that's apparently not happened or not happening.
That's the last thing Canadians want to hear.
Right.
Like, they can't pay for the groceries, and we have politicians bickering.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Canada in 2023 and 2024.
Yep.
Nick, it's always a pleasure. We appreciate the time, and again, congratulations on the Order of Canada. Hey, it's only 35 years. It paid off.
Thanks a lot. Have a great one.
Take care.
You
Bye-bye
too.
now.
Thank you.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
The cars we drive are becoming more and more technologically sophisticated and providing more and more information to us. Problem is, they also provide a whole lot more information about us. And that information is now being weaponized by some. And it's without the driver's knowledge. What's worse, car manufacturers don't seem to be concerned at all. So, yeah, I came across this story and thought we should do a little bit more about this because I never would have thought that this would be an issue. So your car, and obviously the newer the car you have, the more electronically sophisticated it is, to the point that your car, according to the story, could actually be tracking you without your knowledge or your permission. Kashmir Hill is a New York Times reporter, covers technology and privacy, and on the line right now. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
You point out, now it's all well and good to say your car could be doing this stuff, nobody really cares, but the interesting part of the story that you've done is that, you know what, for some people out there, in this case abusive partners, they're using this technology without the other person's knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of cars now have an app that's kind of attached to the car that can be used in a very convenient way. You know, you can use it to find where your car is at any given moment. Make the car honk, turn its lights on, say if you are in a parking lot and you forgot exactly where you parked. But I talked to a woman who had this app weaponized against her. Her husband, after she left him, was using it to track her location. And I learned through talking to domestic violence experts that this is a known problem in the area where people are, using these apps to track a person's movements, control the car, use it as a weapon of harassment. And a lot of people, the women this happened to, they didn't even realize there was an app for the car.
It is so disconcerting. And then beyond that, you would think you'd be a fairly simple thing to rectify, right? You make a phone call, you say, hey, this is my situation. Can we do something about this? That wasn't the case at all with this woman you spoke to. It was very complicated.
No, what seems to happen to these women, and there's other stories, I came across other people that I talked to that aren't in the story, some lawsuits have happened over this, but is that they reach out to the car company, they explain the situation. They have the car, they might even have a restraining order against their partner. Maybe they're in the middle of a divorce, the judge has awarded them possession of the car. But when they reach out to the car company and say, I need to turn off, this person's digital access to the car manufacturers just aren't receptive to that ask. And there's just no off button to say, hey, I don't want my car to reveal my movements. I don't want anyone to have digital access to the car. And so it is extremely frustrating for people that are in this horrible position.
And there have been incidents where that information has been used against these people.
Yeah, I mean, what happened to the main woman I talked to in the story, her name is Christine, and she was being tracked by her husband in real time. At one point, she was over at a friend's house, and he showed up out at the house, parked outside. He was sending her a lot of harassing text messages, and he would reveal that he knew where she was, and she was really frightened that he was going to hurt her. And I think that's the situation that these women, these people that this has happened to, is that they are afraid that someone is going to come after them at the worst, and just using this information to harass them is a harm in and of itself.
So it is kind of a worst case scenario with that, and a rather extreme situation, although it's happening, and not just to one or two people. It is happening. But I'm thinking, just in general, do we need to shift our attitudes towards our car? You highlight in the article how our cars, I mean, I don't know, when I'm in my car by myself, away from my family, it's like a moment, a little haven, right? Do we need to completely shift how we view our cars because it's nowhere near as private as we believe?
Yeah, a lot of experts in this field now refer to cars as smartphones on wheels or smartphones with wheels because they are collecting so much information. They have all kinds of sensors. Some of them have cameras inside the car that are looking at you, looking to see if you're getting drowsy, that you get that alert on your car that says time to take a break, need some coffee, or cameras that are looking outside of the car. There's tracking of how hard you brake, how hard you corner, your mileage, your trips. I mean, it's kind of wild how much information the cars now have, and they're internet connected, and they're sending it back to their manufacturers. So outside of this threat of an abusive partner using their access to the car against you, there's also this greater concern around, hey, how much data is my car collecting? Right. where is it going, who's using it.
Yeah.
And that is something, honestly, that I think consumers are just starting to be aware of.
It's incredibly invasive and worrisome. And then I think if we circle back to the more extreme cases, where there's abuse, are the companies... Are they going to change how they proceed with this? And can it become as simple as a woman calling and saying, or a man calling, whatever the circumstances, and saying, hey, this is happening, do something about it?
You're saying they're not as receptive to that as one would think they should be, right?
They're not. And I report on a couple of the different examples of this. But in Christine's case, the company, the car manufacturer was Mercedes. She talked to customer service agents over and over again, explained the situation. They were sympathetic, but they said, hey, your husband's name is on the car. Right. The title is in his name. We can't help you. She had a detective who was looking into her case, a case against her husband for stalking. The detective reached out to Mercedes customer service over and over again and tried to get them to turn it off, and she couldn't. And this is the experience that a lot of women, abused people have had, according to the experts I talked to. And I think it's just a blind spot at this point for a lot of the automobile manufacturers. It's just not something they've had to deal with. Right. They make cars. They haven't traditionally been these kind of big data collectors. And so I think they just haven't thought
I don't buy that excuse, though. It's time, and you're highlighting it, and now hopefully they will respond accordingly.
But regardless, what if you went to the police directly? If you're not getting help from the manufacturers, can you go to the police? Do they have the power to get this done?
Not in this case. I talked to the detective, and she said she called Mercedes over a dozen times to try to get them to help, and they wouldn't. What Christine ended up doing is taking her car to a mechanic who kind of pulled who pulled the device out of her car that was sending the information. She paid this private mechanic, $400 to do that. It also meant that the navigational system in the car didn't work, that she couldn't use an SOS feature that would call the police in case of an accident. But she didn't care. She just wanted to know that her car wouldn't be a way for her husband to track her.
Best you know more about this. I imagine manufacturers are going to have to, as Natasha said, this is a bit of a wake-up call now that you publicize this. So let's at least hope that changes. Thanks, Kashmir. We appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
No problem.
Kashmir Hill, New York Times. You want to read the story? As I said, it's quite an eye-opener. Who would have ever thought this could happen? An abusive partner. You don't even know you're being tracked. It would happen at least in a couple of these cases.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
And that wraps up another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and we will see you next week.
Have a fantastic week.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6
on CJAD 800
or through the iHeartRadio app.